Social justice for Inupiat people: impacts from history of contact, colonization, and corporations on the resilience and wellness of Inupiat people today. About 10,000 Inupiat people were believed to inhabit northern Alaska at the time of contact. The extreme environment of the far north, as well as geographic logistical obstacles, provided some protection from outsiders that Alaska Native groups to the south did not enjoy during the 1800s. Inupiat people developed cultural practices that sustainably and efficiently utilized the resources available to them. Every man and woman of every age played an important role in the interwoven duties that made the group or clan self-sufficient and able to thrive. Prior to contact from outsiders, Inupiat had developed many cultural resilience factors that contributed to their overall wellness. Ingenuity, such as the nozzle used for inflating buoys used for large mammal hunting, layered clothing that trapped air for insulation, and the bow drill were among the inventions used by the Inupiat to live successfully in an extreme environment. Successful hunting practices and resource conservation allowed food surpluses to be accumulated, putting less pressure on mere survival and allowing culture and innovation to flourish. Three types of food harvesting, including large sea mammal hunting, mixed hunting and fishing, and caribou hunting, allowed the Inupiat to be versatile throughout time in sustaining themselves. Hunting required cooperation of many individuals, which further supported the connection between members of a community and their collectivist values. All Alaska Native cultures rely on members of their group to work collectively in order to sustain themselves within their environment, and this reliance may be of even greater significance to the Inupiat given their extreme environment and relative isolation. The Inupiat culture grew over thousands of years to support the importance of group membership and the expectations of an individual to contribute to the group. Knowledge of hunting, fishing, food preservation, and the customs that supported those activities were passed orally from one generation to the next, creating further dependence on group membership and contribution. Qualities of self-reliance and personal success were not valued as they are in modern American culture today. For the Inupiat, wellness of every member as it relates to mind, body, and spirit is interwoven with the wellness of the group as a whole. The Yankee whalers passed through the Bering Strait in pursuit of bowhead whale in the 1850s, which was the first known contact with Euro-American people. This initial contact established intent from outsiders to harvest resources utilized by the Inupiat. With the whalers and later the merchants and missionaries came disease, which devastated the Inupiat along with many other Alaska Native groups as they came in contact with white people. During the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, Inupiat people were again devastated by measles and tuberculosis, leaving large gaps in entire generations of people and contributing to the distrust of outsiders. Competition for resources and the annihilation of large portions of the population placed strain on the resilience that had served the Inupiat for thousands of years. As the Inupiat are a culture that relies on the coordinated efforts of a group or clan members for survival, the loss of so many members of the group from disease had extensive impacts on the culture as a whole. The competition for resources with outsiders began, and matched with the loss of life from disease brought by the outsiders, the Inupiat faced nearly insurmountable struggles. Sharing the labor and its resulting benefits had been an integral part of the Inupiat culture and lifestyle. It was made far more challenging as the impacts from outsiders mounted. As Alaska was purchased from Russia in 1867 by the United States government, American capitalists sought to harvest benefits from the newly acquired Alaska territory. Salmon, cod, and other fisheries resources were already being harvested, and gold, oil, and coal were all discovered throughout the late 1800s. The efforts of resource extraction increased, and the need to control the native people of Alaska became paramount in these efforts. The United States government was well organized for such a task. Perhaps one of the most devastating consequences on Alaska Native people was the institution of boarding schools. Though these schools boasted positive impacts that helped to educate and modernize Alaska Native children, they were very effective at interrupting the interwoven cultural resilience that had sustained them for so long. These schools removed youth from their village, did not allow them to speak their native language, and taught them to feel shameful for being native. Families found that children either did not return to their home villages at all, or return with anger and resentment toward their group and culture. As Alaska was settled and federal and state government began to exercise control of the land and resources, they did so with no intention of collaborating with the Inupiat, despite their successful resource management for centuries. Resources were exploited with little thought to conservation or sustainability, and Alaska Native people were thought to be inferior to their white American counterparts. This perspective prevailed through the 20th century, with little done to protect or preserve Alaska Native culture until the first meaningful proactive Alaskan legislation was passed in 1971. The Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act conveyed over 44 million acres of land to Native corporations that were formed to represent various Alaska Native groups. While the impacts of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act are still debated, the act did return some authority and autonomy to the Native people. In regards to Alaska resource management, the Alaska Division of Natural Resources oversees oil, natural gas, coal, and other mining activities that take place in the home of the Inupiat and throughout Alaska. Most recently, the contentious Pebble Mine proposal identifies the importance of resource management and the impacts that management decisions will have on local people. The proposed Pebble Mine may be the largest gold and copper deposit in North America. The development would likely have detrimental impacts on Bristol Bay salmon resources, and thus the people that depend on those salmon. If and how Alaskan mineral resources are extracted will have lasting consequences on the people of Alaska long after the minerals are exhausted. The Exxon Valdez oil spill in 1989 and the BP Prudhoe Bay oil spill in 2006 are also examples of lack of oversight of industry and corporate interests that resulted in disaster for the people of Alaska. Regarding resource value, Alaska remains rich in fish and wildlife, as well as in natural resources such as oil, gas, and minerals. Fish and wildlife resources have suffered due to overharvest and competition for resources. Consequences such as monetary fines for environmental damage resulting from poorly managed resource extraction is paid and forgotten, while loss of fishing and hunting lands will impact many generations of Alaska Native people. Although most resources are discussed in terms of monetary value, there are other types of value attributed to Alaska fish and game resources. Culture and lifestyle supported by responsible hunting and fishing is interwoven in the lives of Alaska Native people. Subsistence is not a strictly economic activity, although it is often valued and compared that way for planning purposes. Subsistence activities play a crucial role in the wellness of the Inupiat people, and the threat to those activities further strains their cultural resilience. Social justice is the concept that all people, regardless of race or economic status, share equal opportunity to the risks and benefits of activities that occur in their surroundings. Unfortunately, it is typical that people living outside of an area benefit more from extracting resources from the area than the local people. It is also typical that the local people share much more risk than outsiders when resources are extracted from an area. The past 200 years have illustrated the lack of social justice in the world of the Inupiat people. Their subsistence activities, their cultural knowledge and practices have been strained and challenged by outside forces as the resources from northern Alaska are sought. The role of subsistence and resilience of the Inupiat is vital. The limited access to indigenous foods and the institutionalized support that encourages dependence on modern processed food has had terrible impacts on the wellness of the Inupiat. Many Inupiat are forced to choose a modern life with wage income or focus on subsistence harvest despite the limitations and competition for resources. Again, Inupiat have shown how versatile they can be and often live in both worlds, working for a wage to support their subsistence harvest and other cultural activities. Traditional ecological knowledge, or tech, uses the community as a foundation, a community in which it is practiced and passed on to future generations is needed, as it is not codified in books kept in libraries like Western knowledge. Subsistence communities act as the libraries of tech. Without strong, resilient communities with members who are mentally, physically, and spiritually well, tech loses its library or place of practice. This presents a precarious position for this important knowledge system, but it can be protected through adopting policies that actively support the subsistence community structure rather than placing additional strain upon it. The Inupiat people lived for thousands of years in northern Alaska as a self-reliant, innovative, and culturally rich group. The accumulated challenges placed on them over the past 200 years has cut at the fibers of every part of their culture. Despite these accumulated risks, they continue to fight for rights and to maintain their culture and traditions. No action itself can fix all of the challenges that have been forced upon the Inupiat people since their contact with white Euro-Americans, nor will the presence of and influence of white Americans cease to impact them. The state can adopt policies that maintain a priority of social justice, which would limit the accumulated risks that have caused so many problems. Policies based on social justice would allow the Inupiat to strengthen and rebuild their resilience, their culture, and their lives. Please note the resources cited for this presentation. Thank you.